Thank you.
Well, of course, I guess there's a certain amount of prejudice, but I'm not aware of there being much prejudice, nothing like the people of the North seem to think. Among my friends, we don't seem to have any particular prejudice. I was Alabama chairman for UNICEF, and UNICEF was sending out an international exhibition of children's artwork from all the children of the world, even African children. So I had the idea of comparing it with our local children and getting all the local schools to send in schoolwork. And a boy that won happened to be a Negro that had come from the Negro schools. And then he and his mother and family went down to see his exhibit. It was when we were exhibiting at the library. And it's against the city ordinance for the Negro people to come into the white library, so he was stopped at the door and not allowed to come. And they called me in great distress. I didn't know up until then who it was had won. But I had no trouble in arranging special permission for him and his family to go in and see the picture. It was just a question of making a phone call and explaining the situation. And I think art and culture belongs to everyone. On that level, I think we have very little prejudice. Now, I admire the Negro race very much. They have made more progress than any race ever has in a shorter length of time. It's simply phenomenal to think the progress they have made. And many of them are doing fine creative work. In fact, I think that's one of the contributing factors to our creativeness in the South is a sort of joyousness of the Negro. You know, he was happy and contented. You don't hear that anymore. Now, as a girl, we used to hear Negroes singing all the time. They just walked down the street and singing. And the servants in the house would sing, the gardeners would sing, and they were just sort of like in Spain or Mexico now. But I haven't heard a Negro just spontaneously break into song in 4 or 5 years. And that's bad, because they're not happy and we're not happy about it.
Substantially all of the Negroes in Alabama, and perhaps in the South, Deep South, have the same background. They were all savages in Africa. Their parents sold them into slavery, or their chieftains sold them into slavery. They were brought into this country in a state of savagery. They didn't speak the language of the country. They had no concept of the economy of the country. They had no concept of working in order to obtain a livelihood. Their concept, when they were hungry, was to roam the jungles of Africa and to live in the forests and the fruits of the forest and the meats that they secured there. When they were brought into this economy, it was entirely strange and different from them. And they had to be reconciled to it. I have no doubt that the Negro basically knows that the best friend he's ever had in the world is a Southern white man. He'd do the most for him, always has, and will continue to do it. But when they, from Northern agitators, are spurred on to believe that they are the equal to the white man in every respect and should be just taken from savagery and put on the same plane with the white man in every respect, that's not true. He shouldn't be. It hurts the Negro. And that feeling has brought about this estrangement. And that feeling is brought about by outside sources, not by the Negroes residing in the South, in my judgment. I don't believe it'll ever happen. There would be a measure of violence in Birmingham, in my opinion, I regret to say. There's a lot of white people here that say this, that even the dumbest farmer in the world knows that if he has white chickens and black chickens, that the black chickens do better if they're kept in one yard to themselves, the white chickens do better if they're kept in a separate yard to themselves. They each do better under those conditions. And that a farmer who would mix the white and the black chickens would be the dumbest man in the world.
We are guilty of all sorts of sins, sins against the Negro, sins against economy, and many sins, and yet no more proportionally than other parts of the country. It's simply that when anything happens here or in the South, they say, oh, that's the South. If it happens in Chicago, they say that's a murder on Main Street in Chicago. But if it happens in Birmingham, oh, that's the bloody, violent South.
Peter was asked a question.
Hi, everybody.